What is empathic listening? Are there any tools that can help us develop the skills?
Well, yes. When we speak about feedback conversations in companies, one of the elements of the feedback conversation is learning how to listen. And learning how to listen seems obvious because all of us believe that we listen from the day we are born. Actually, we have 2 ears, and supposedly we listen. And I believe that what happens is that we hear sounds, we hear stories, but we don't necessarily listen per se. As I say, this element is critical in feedback conversations, and I would like to offer a possible model to interpret listening, which is the model Otto Scharmer uses when he speaks about innovation and how to learn from the future. Otto Scharmer defines in his book, Theory U, four levels of listening. The first level is the one that we normally use. We call it listen from habit, which is what we already know. And when somebody tells us a story, we are filtering it through what we have learned, what we know. And if that story meets our own filters, we accept it. If it doesn't meet our filters, we reject the story or we respond, with arguments that go against that story. So we try to win over the other person. We try to solve it in our own way. So we are listening from habit to actually to reconfirm what we believe we already know. Then there is a second level that Otto Scharmer defines in listening, which is listening for facts, but listening out of curiosity, listening to what we're being told. And that is a typical methodology, the scientific methodology, where we are constantly holding hypotheses, theories, but we're not attached to the theory or the hypothesis. We are willing to disconfirm the hypothesis through disconfirming evidence. In that level of listening, we listen to what's being said, and there could be data that we didn't know before, and that challenges or that puts at risk what the story we believe we had. In that case, we have the openness of mind to include those new data in our story and create a new narrative, a new model that may be different from before. This is a second level of listening, listening for facts. Then there is a third level of listening. And here, Benja, I am starting to answer your question. You were asking about empathic listening, which is precisely what Otto Scharmer calls listening with an open heart, listening with empathy, listening from the inside. Empathic listening is to see how the world looks through the eyes of the other, to think that if I were him, if I had his experiences, his own stories, today I would be having exactly the same experience, the same view as my interlocutor. How would things look like? How do things look? Exactly how the person whom I'm speaking to is seeing those things. I can feel what she feels. I can see and have the intuition that she has. Empathic listening allows a deep connection with the other. At the same time, I'm not letting go of my opinions, of my stories, of what I believe. I'm simply uh, connecting with the other and trying to understand how what the other sees or feels can be exactly the way the other is relating to me. This allows a much deeper connection and creates a field of resonance. And after that exchange, in my opinion, you can become a lot more creative and a lot more innovative when you're speaking, when you are listening from that level. And then you have a fourth level of listening, which is the deepest of all, and it means how can we create a field between us? How can we listen to the field? How can we listen from the field? And in a way, listen from the future that is trying to emerge. This is a really deep level of listening, and many times happens when we encounter a problem that we cannot solve, and then we relax, we start breathing, we enter an almost meditative state, and suddenly the solution appears. That is what Otto Scharmer calls listening from the will and listening from the field. This opens a space for somebody, for something, I'm sorry, to emerge.
Is there a way to get to those levels, especially the third and the fourth level, where they could sound a little bit abstract or challenging to put in practice, depending on where we are at the moment? How do you see that?
Well, I think there are, as I say, different levels of listening, and the deeper you go, the more empathy you can build with your counterpart, and even listening from the field opens the space to listen, as I say, from the future that's trying to emerge. Now, as everything, Benka, the key is not uh, to listen from those levels, but how can you become the person that can listen from those levels? Once you become that person, empathic listening can seem obvious. But for example, if you enter the conversation with a mental model of curiosity, a mental model of vulnerability, being aware that you have a limited perception of the world, and being aware that the other can have access to that, to data, information, different stories from yours that can be as valuable as yours, then it will it will be very, very easy for you to enter that space of empathic resonance. Now, if you can't become that kind of person, it will be extremely difficult and challenging. You are going to be listening from habit or from the outside, simply filtering the stories. And when you are in that kind of mental model, the mental model of certainty, as we call it, the mental model of the knower, uh, the other has basically nothing to offer because you're not looking to learn. You're just looking to validate what you already know. If so it would be practically impossible to enter a field of resonance with the other person. um, there is nothing I have to get from the other because my stories are already self-sealing, they're complete. uh, as I say, it's really challenging. So our quest working with clients is to help them become the kind of person that can listen and can create a field of empathic resonance. That's the most challenging part.